HOA Karen set fire to my crops, then panicked. When firefighters knocked, I never thought a quiet morning could turn into a nightmare. The sun was rising, my cornfield golden and perfect. Then I smelled smoke and saw flames licking the edges of my crops. I ran across the yard, heart pounding, and there she was, HOA Karen, standing too close to the fire, smiling. But something in her eyes was pure panic. I could hear sirens growing louder, and I knew this was far from over. The knock at her door would change everything. Welcome to HOA Secrets Uncovered. I'm David. I live right here in the suburbs, same cul-de-sac. I grow my little backyard farm, minding my own business. But HOA Karen, she never lets anyone be. Today I'm sharing the story of the day she set fire to my crops and how everything spiraled out of control. I stepped outside, the morning sun hitting my face. My backyard stretched before me, rows of golden corn swaying gently in the breeze. Everything looked perfect, peaceful, almost too perfect. I took a deep breath. The air smelled fresh, with a hint of soil. And then I smelled something else, something sharp, acrid, smoke. I froze. My stomach dropped. My heart skipped a beat. I looked across my field and saw it, a small wisp of smoke curling up. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was burning some trash, but the smoke grew faster, spreading, moving toward my crops. Panic hit me. I ran, my bare feet hitting the grass, my hands shaking as I reached the first row of corn. Flames were flickering, small at first, but hungry. They licked the dry stalks, sending sparks into the air. And then I saw her, HOA Karen, standing at the edge of my field, her hands slightly shaking. Her face had that same forced smile she always wore. But her eyes, oh, her eyes, they were wild, panicked. I could feel the madness in her stare. "Karen," I shouted, but she didn't answer. She just turned her head slightly, glancing toward the street. I could see it. The moment she realized help was coming, I ran faster, trying to put out the fire with my hands, dirt, anything. Neighbors were starting to appear, some screaming, some frozen. I could hear the distant wail of sirens, growing louder. The smell of smoke burned my nose, my throat, my lungs. And Karen, she started moving, stepping back. Every step looked unsteady, as if she was trying to decide. Run, or save herself, or maybe call someone. I didn't know. I just watched, furious and terrified at the same time. I shouted for help. Neighbors grabbed buckets, hoses. But the fire had already spread too fast. Corn stalks were crackling, popping, collapsing under the heat. I felt helpless, watching months of work, my harvest, vanish in front of me. Then I heard it. A knock. Not at my door, but down the street. At Karen's door, she froze completely. Her face went pale. Her smile disappeared. I could see the fear now, the raw panic, the kind that makes people forget everything else, even their precious HOA rules. I backed up, watching the fire, the smoke, the chaos, and Karen standing there, trembling. It felt unreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I shouted again. "Call the firefighters." Some neighbors had already done it. But the moment Karen realized they were coming, she dropped her phone, stumbled back, and I swear, I saw a flash of guilt cross her face. Time slowed down, every second stretched. The smoke twisted in the sunlight. The flames danced like they were alive. And Karen, she was frozen, caught in her own web of mistakes. I ran toward the side of the field, trying to save anything I could. Corn leaves were blackening, stalks collapsing. The smell was overpowering, choking, suffocating. I coughed. My eyes watered. My hands shaking. Neighbors were screaming at Karen, some yelling, some laughing. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She always controlled everyone, always judged. And now, powerless, panic-stricken, she was at the mercy of her own chaos. I could hear the sirens closer now. Firefighters rushing in, trucks squealing to a stop, hoses unrolling, men shouting, commanding. Controlling the flames, Karen shrank back, hiding, trying to disappear. But everyone could see. Her perfect HOA world was crumbling. Right there in front of her, I stood there, drenched in sweat, dirt, and smoke, watching the destruction, feeling anger, disbelief, relief. It was a mess. And yet, part of me couldn't look away. Karen turned to run, but stopped, her eyes wide, frozen. I could see her mind racing. Every plan she had, every rule she enforced, every fine she sent, meaningless now. Nothing could save her from what she had started. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to yell about the corn, about the fire, about everything she had done. But the sound of the sirens, the firefighters shouting commands, it was like a signal. The world outside had taken control. And Karen, she had no power anymore. I stepped closer, but kept my distance, watching her panic, watching her finally face reality. I could see the change in her, the kind of fear that makes people small, the kind that leaves them speechless, helpless, exposed. I didn't know what I would do next. Would I call the police? Would I try to press charges? Or would I watch as karma did its work? Smoke filled the sky, neighbors whispering, cameras from phones capturing every moment, Karen pacing, hands in her hair, muttering. Panicked, I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, my heart still pounding, mind racing, eyes never leaving her. And then I heard it. The first real shout from the firefighters. "Everyone back! Fire's spreading fast!" Karen flinched. I flinched. Everything was about to explode. Metaphorically and literally, I wanted to step closer, confront her. But something inside told me, wait, let it unfold, let everyone see, let her feel the fear she caused. And as I stood there, watching the smoke twist, the flames reach higher, I realized this was more than just fire. It was a reckoning, a lesson. And Karen, she had no idea what was coming next, so I ask you, right now, if someone like HOA Karen set fire to your hard work, would you confront them? Or wait and watch as the chaos teaches them the lesson they deserve? What would you do if your neighbor crossed the line like this? Smoke still curled into the sky, thick, black, twisting. The fire trucks had arrived, hoses unrolling, water spraying. I stood at the edge of my field, hands shaking, still coughing. My heart was racing, but my mind, it wouldn't stop, replaying Karen's face, that panicked, guilty look. Neighbors were gathered, some whispering, some pointing, some laughing quietly. I noticed Mr. Thompson from 3 houses down, recording on his phone. I couldn't tell if he was helping or enjoying the chaos. It was the suburbs, the perfect, quiet neighborhood. And suddenly, everything was gone. Replaced by smoke, fire, and whispers. Karen was still near her porch, frozen, clutching her phone, muttering to herself, her perfect nails shaking, her hair slightly messy. I could see the panic clearly now. The mask of HOA authority completely gone. She wasn't a leader. She wasn't in control. She was just terrified. I stepped closer, cautiously, careful not to get too near the flames. I wanted to ask her why she did it, why she burned my crops, but her eyes avoided mine, darting, searching, maybe for an excuse, maybe for someone to save her. But no one was coming, except the firefighters, and the firefighters weren't on her side. The water hit the flames, hissing, steam rising, sparks sizzling. The smell of wet smoke filled my lungs, made me gag. Yet in the chaos, a strange calm settled over me. I realized Karen had finally lost the game she thought she controlled so perfectly. I glanced at the neighbors, some shaking their heads, muttering about HOA rules, fines, petty disputes. It was funny, in a dark, ironic way. All the little notes, the warnings, the threats, the power trips. And now, nothing mattered. Nothing could save her pride. Nothing could hide her fear. Karen tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. I could see it, her mind racing. What should she say? What excuse could she offer? All her carefully constructed rules, all the power she thought she had, useless now. I wanted to ask her, scream at her, tell her she ruined everything, but my voice felt stuck, trembling in my chest. The firefighters were working fast, shouting, coordinating, hoses swinging, water spraying, flames fighting. I stepped back, watching, feeling. The fire wasn't just burning my crops. It was burning my peace, my safety, my belief that this neighborhood was calm, orderly, predictable. And then a new sound caught my attention. The HOA lawyer, arriving in a shiny car, stepping out, clipboard in hand. Karen froze again, panic rising even higher. She looked at him, then at the field, then back at me. I could see it in her eyes. She knew this was going to get worse, much worse. I turned to the other neighbors. They were whispering, talking quietly. Some were shaking their heads, some smiling in quiet victory. It was strange, the way small victories feel in a place ruled by rules, by fines, by control. Karen had finally crossed the line, and everyone knew it. I walked back to the corner of my proper tie, trying to pull myself together. My hands still shook, dirt under my nails, smoke in my hair. I thought about all the warnings she had sent, all the petty notes about lawn colors, mailbox heights, the number of cars in the driveway, and here she was, caught, powerless, completely exposed. Karen finally lifted her head, looked at me, eyes wide, full of fear. She opened her mouth, closed it, muttered something I couldn't hear. I could see the wheels turning, trying to figure out her next move. Would she deny it? Would she blame someone else? Or would she finally face what she had done? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I couldn't think about revenge. Not yet. The fire was almost under control, the smoke rising in twisting columns, black against the morning sun. My corn, some of it destroyed, some of it still standing, but ruined. I noticed the smell of burnt corn, and for some reason, it made me angrier. All those hours planting, watering, watching the crops grow. And Karen, the HOA queen of pettiness, had destroyed it in minutes. And now, she was panicked, trembling, begging silently for someone to save her. I stepped closer to her porch. Careful. Slow. She glanced at me, fear in her eyes. She didn't know if I would scream, call the cops, or just stand there and watch. I didn't say anything, just watched. The silence stretched, broken only by the hiss of water on fire, the crack of burning wood, the distant sirens. Karen finally sank into a chair, defeated, humiliated, powerless. I realized something strange. All her power, all her rules, all her tiny victories over neighbors, meaningless. She had controlled us with fear, with letters, fines, whispers. And now, she was controlled by fear. Real fear. Not just HOA authority. I looked around. Neighbors still watching. Some whispering. Some shaking heads. I felt a strange connection to them. The shared relief, the shared anger, the quiet amusement. Karen had taught us all a lesson, but she didn't know it yet. And the irony, the dark, twisted suburban irony, made me smile. Quietly, inside, I turned back to the field. Some of my crops burned, some destroyed, some untouched. It wasn't just about the corn. It was about control, pride, power, and Karen. She had finally learned that lesson. Painfully, publicly, undeniably, and yet I couldn't help but wonder, was this really over? Could someone like her, someone so obsessed with control, truly be stopped by a little chaos? Or would she try again, in another way, another day? I wanted to ask her, scream at her, demand answers, but the silence was loud, louder than any words could be. I took a deep breath, watching the smoke rise, my neighbors watching, Karen shivering. And I realized the moment had changed everything. The quiet cul-de-sac, the perfect lawns, the small rules, all of it. Nothing would ever feel the same again. So I ask you, right now, if someone like HOA Karen destroyed your hard work, burned your crops, and laughed at petty rules, would you confront them or let them face the chaos they created? I couldn't take my eyes off Karen. She sat on her porch, trembling, staring at the field, at the smoke, at the chaos she had caused. It was like watching a storm pass over someone's life, slowly, painfully. And I realized I wasn't just angry. I was curious. Curious to see what she would do next. The firefighters moved quickly, hoses swinging, water hitting the flames, hissing, Spitting, neighbors murmured, some shaking heads, some whispering excitedly. I could hear the small clicks of phones, videos being recorded, little moments captured forever. And Karen, still frozen, still pale, still powerless. I stepped closer, feeling the heat of the fire behind me, my boots crunching on burnt grass, my hands covered in dirt. I could smell the smoke, thick, heavy, choking. It made me cough, made my eyes water. But I couldn't look away. Karen finally lifted her head, and our eyes met. I could see panic, shame, fear, all tangled together. Her HOA mask, the one she wore every day, disappeared completely. It was just her, small, human, vulnerable. And yet, she had caused this chaos, this destruction. I wanted to ask her why she did it. But something told me she wouldn't answer. She would just fumble, stammer, lie, deny. And yet, there was something different today. I could see a crack in her armor, a moment where control slipped completely. The firefighters shouted. Water sprayed, flames slowly dying. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, watching my corn. Some stalks blackened, some untouched, some ruined. It wasn't just about crops anymore. It was about control, pride, power, and what happens when someone abuses it. Karen stood slowly, wobbling slightly, muttering. I could hear her trying to make excuses, words spilling, stopping, starting again, her voice small, nervous, panicked. The HOA lawyer was now talking to her. Clipboard shaking in his hands, I could see her shrinking, trying to explain herself, but there were no words that could fix this. I walked closer to my burned corn, feeling the heat, running my fingers over the stalks. My heart ached, for the loss, for the time wasted, for the anger simmering inside me. And yet, I felt a strange satisfaction. Karen had lost, in front of everyone, powerless, exposed, humiliated. Neighbors gathered, whispering, some laughing quietly. I could feel their eyes on me, some sympathetic, some curious. It was strange, the way the neighborhood had changed in just minutes. The quiet cul-de-sac, the perfect lawns, now full of whispers, chaos, tension. I turned back to Karen. She was pacing, muttering, her nails tapping, shaking. I could see her mind racing. What should she do next? Would she apologize, deny it, blame someone else? I wasn't sure. And I wanted to see, just a little, what her next move would be. I walked along the edge of my field, trying to salvage what I could. Some corn could be saved, some ruined, some burned. I grabbed buckets of water, tried to douse the last flames. The firefighters worked beside me, shouting orders, controlling chaos, and Karen, she stayed back, silent, watching, unsure, afraid. It was surreal. The person who ruled this street with letters, fines, and pettiness, powerless, afraid of her own mistakes. I felt the irony, dark, twisted, suburban irony. All those small victories she thought she had, meaningless, gone in smoke and fire. I heard a quiet whisper behind me, one of the neighbors. She never thought it would come to this, did she? I smiled slightly. No, she didn't. She never does. She thinks rules are power. But real life, real chaos, strips it away. Karen finally spoke, muttered something. I couldn't hear clearly, but I saw her lips moving, shaking. I could see her trying to form excuses, trying to regain control. But the fire, the smoke, the neighbors, the law, everything had already won. I walked closer, standing near her porch, watching her. She flinched, recoiled, tried to hide. I could see the panic in her eyes, every small line in her face screaming fear. And I realized this wasn't just fire. This wasn't just ruined corn. This was a lesson, a moment of truth, a reckoning. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, thinking about all the letters, the rules, the pettiness, all the HOA threats, the small power trips. And now, she had lost it all in minutes, and everyone had seen it. Everyone would talk. Everyone would know. Karen suddenly looked around, noticing neighbors, phones, witnesses. I could see the shame, the panic, the guilt. I wanted to speak, to say something, but instead, I just watched, letting it unfold. There was something satisfying in letting people face their own chaos, without interference. And then, she froze again. I could see her thinking, planning, panicking. The HOA lawyer whispering, the firefighters shouting, the neighbors murmuring, everything closing in, pressure building, tension rising. I thought about the irony, how petty power trips, control over small lawns, mailbox heights, cornfield colors, could lead to chaos, destruction, fear, embarrassment. And I felt not happiness, not revenge, but a quiet sense of justice, natural justice, ironic justice, suburban karma. I looked at my neighbors, some shocked, some whispering, some smiling quietly. I saw their faces, reflections of disbelief, relief, quiet excitement, the quiet street, rules, HOA, all disrupted by one person, one action, one mistake. Karen's eyes met mine again, pleading silently, desperate, unsure. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. And I realized, this moment, this fire, this chaos, would follow her, haunt her, make her question every action, every letter, every fine. The smoke rose, twisting higher, black and gray. The corn, partially saved, partially destroyed. The neighborhood, changed forever, even if just a little. And Karen, trembling, powerless, exposed, learning a lesson the hard way. So I ask you, if someone like HOA Karen ruined your life, burned your work, and laughed at petty rules, would you step in, confront them, or let them face the chaos and learn their lesson? What would you do if your neighbor crossed every line? Would you act or wait and watch? The fire was almost under control, but my hands were still shaking. Smoke lingered in the air, heavy, thick, choking. I could see my neighbors watching, Whispers filling the street. Cameras pointed. Phones recording. And Karen. She sat on her porch, frozen, like a bird caught in a cage. Her face pale, her hands trembling, and she couldn't believe how fast everything had spiraled out of control. The HOA lawyer stepped closer to her, clipboard shaking slightly in his hand. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see the panic in her eyes. Every word must have felt like a hammer, every suggestion like chains tightening. She flinched at every movement, every sound, every glance. And I realized this was only the beginning for her. The firefighters were shouting orders, coordinating, unrolling hoses, water hissing onto the scorched earth. I could feel the heat still radiating from the blackened stalks. Some corn had survived, but most was ruined, charred, burned. My heart ached. The months of work, the early mornings, the sweat, all gone in a few minutes. Because of Karen's reckless hands, I stepped toward the remaining crop, trying to salvage what I could. Neighbors murmuring around me, offering help, some shocked, some silent. It was strange, the way people gather when chaos happens, how the quiet street, the perfect lawns, suddenly feel alive, chaotic, unpredictable. Karen finally spoke, her voice trembling, small, weak. I didn't mean, I just... Her words stumbled over themselves. Her excuses sounded empty, ridiculous. I could see the desperation, the fear, the shame. And I knew no words could fix this. Not now. Not ever. I walked slowly along my field, blackened stalks snapping under my feet. The smell of burnt corn filled my lungs, my nose, my hair. I coughed, but kept moving, watching, noticing every detail. Karen shifting in her chair, fidgeting. Her perfect HOA world completely shattered. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to fix it, how to save herself, how to survive the embarrassment. And then, something unexpected happened. A neighbor, one of the quiet ones, Mrs. Lane from the end of the street, stepped forward. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She just looked Karen in the eyes and said softly, "You would have thought about the consequences before you acted." Karen flinched. Her face paled even more. I felt a strange satisfaction, a quiet, dark, suburban satisfaction. All her power, all her pettiness, all the little fines, meaningless now. Her reputation, on the edge of collapse, her pride, burned along with my crops. I looked around, neighbors whispering, shaking heads, some smiling quietly. Even the HOA lawyers seemed tense, clipboard clutched like a shield. I realized everyone was watching, waiting, seeing the downfall of the person who ruled them all with fear and rules. Karen tried to regain control, lifting her chin, straightening her shoulders, muttering. But I could see the panic in her eyes, the desperation, the small cracks of fear showing through. She had lost, completely, publicly, and she knew it. I took a step back, letting her process the chaos. The fire mostly controlled now, smoke still curling, blackened stalks snapping, the air heavy with ash, heat, tension, and quiet triumph. I thought about all the letters, fines, petty threats, and power trips, and realized, sometimes, real life, real chaos, teaches better lessons than any rule could. Karen suddenly looked around, noticing every neighbor, every phone, every witness. I could see the guilt, the panic, the shame. Her small world, her little kingdom, crumbling, all because of one reckless act, one fire, one mistake. I bent down, touching the scorched earth, running my fingers along burned stalks. The anger inside me bubbled, but it was mixed with something else. A strange satisfaction, a quiet, ironic sense of justice. Karen had caused this. She had lost control. She had no power. And the neighborhood had seen it all. I glanced at her and could see her planning, scheming, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to survive. But I wasn't afraid. I didn't flinch. Her panic was enough. Her fear was enough. The chaos had done the work I never had to. I walked slowly through the blackened rows, neighbors offering quiet help. I noticed the firefighter nodding at me, a silent acknowledgement. I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs. Still smoky, still heavy, still tense. The sun glinted off the hoses, the fire trucks, the burnt corn. Everything sharp, everything alive. Everything changed. Karen finally lifted her head, her eyes meeting mine, wide, pleading, terrified. I didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant sirens, the crack of burnt stalks, the whisper of neighbors. She shifted, muttered something, but I ignored it, letting the weight of her mistake sink in. And then I realized this was more than fire, more than crops. This was a lesson, a reckoning, an exposure of everything she thought she controlled, and the neighborhood. We were all witnesses, all participants, all changed by it. I took another slow step back, watching Karen, watching the chaos settle, the smoke rising, the corn partially saved, partially ruined, neighbors whispering, laughing quietly, shaking heads in disbelief, and Karen, trembling, powerless. Finally facing the reality she created, I could see the small, quiet change. The cracks forming, the fear settling in. All the rules, all the petty fines, all the HOA power trips, meaningless. Because when chaos hits, when fire spreads, the person in control loses, and everyone else sees the truth. So I ask you, if someone like HOA Karen ruined your work, burned your dreams, and thought rules were power, would you confront them directly, or let them feel the consequences of their own chaos? What would you do if your neighbor crossed every line and faced no immediate punishment? Would you act or watch silently? The smoke had started to thin, but the heat still lingered. The blackened cornfield looked like a battlefield, broken, charred, defeated. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, adrenaline still coursing, still nagging through my veins. Neighbors were gathered, whispers and quiet laughter mixing with awe. And Karen, she was still on her porch, trembling, shaking, her perfect facade of control shattered, gone. The HOA lawyer leaned toward her, murmuring, writing notes. I didn't need to hear the words to know what they meant. Karen's panic rose, a tide she couldn't hold back. I could see it in her eyes, the panic, the fear, the realization that this wasn't going away. She finally stood, hands gripping the railing, knuckles white. Her voice quivered. I just, it wasn't supposed to. I didn't say anything, just watched, letting the weight of her mistake press down on her. It was almost poetic. The irony. The petty HOA queen, undone, powerless, exposed. The firefighters shouted, voices cutting through the thick air. Water sprayed the last flames, hissing, twisting, curling into smoke. Neighbors were helping me salvage what I could, some still whispering, some shaking their heads. It was surreal. All the rules, all the fines, all the petty HOA notes, meaningless now, because real life, real chaos, had taken over. Karen shifted, pacing, muttering under her breath. I noticed the HOA lawyer scribbling furiously, explaining legal consequences, fines, insurance claims. Her face went pale, and I could see the panic build. She had always ruled with fear. Little letters, tiny notes, whispers down the street. But now, she was the one afraid. Small, human, exposed. I walked closer to her porch, trying to stay calm, careful. Her eyes met mine, pleading silently, desperate. I didn't respond, didn't move. Just let her feel the weight of her actions. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant wail of sirens and the crackling of blackened corn. It was then I noticed a few neighbors stepping forward. They weren't shouting, weren't accusing. They just watched, their eyes sharp. Finally seeing the truth of HOA Karen's obsession with control, and I realized I wasn't alone. The whole street had seen it. And no amount of petty rules or letters could erase what she had done. Karen finally raised her voice, shaking. I can fix this. I can make it right. I felt a strange surge of amusement, dark, ironic amusement, because I knew. No words could undo this. No apologies could bring back the corn. She had caused chaos. And now she had to live with it, publicly, painfully. I took a step closer, the heat of the fire lingering behind me, the smell of burnt corn still thick in the air. I could feel the weight of the day pressing down, the tension, the drama, the irony, and Karen. She flinched at every move I made, her control gone, her confidence shattered, her little kingdom in ruins. I looked around at the neighbors, some whispering, some smiling quietly. Even the quiet ones, the ones who never spoke, seemed to sense the change. The power dynamics had shifted. The queen of the HOA, powerless, exposed, human. And I felt, not triumph, not revenge, but a strange calm. The chaos had done what I never could. Karen had learned a lesson, painfully, publicly, undeniably. Karen's hands were shaking, her lips trembling, her eyes wide with panic. I wanted to ask her why she had burned my crops, why she had acted so recklessly. But I knew. She wouldn't answer. She would only stammer, fumble, deny, excuse. And in that moment, the irony of it all, her obsession with control, completely meaningless. I smiled slightly, quietly, letting her panic speak for itself. The firefighters were finishing up, water dripping, hoses unrolled, last sparks hissing. I walked along the edge of my field, blackened corn snapping under my boots. Neighbors were still whispering, sharing looks, Small smiles, disbelief, satisfaction. It was strange, the way a quiet street, so orderly, so predictable, could be changed in one moment by fire, by chaos, by one reckless act. Karen's voice shook as she spoke again. I didn't know it would. Her words trailed off, swallowed by the smoke, the whispers, the tension. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to regain control, how to save herself. But it was too late. The damage done, the lesson learned, her authority gone. I stepped back, letting her feel it, letting the moment settle. The corn, partially saved, partially destroyed, charred, blackened, ruined, neighbors watching, whispers spreading, phones recording every move. Karen, trembling, powerless, finally realizing the consequences of obsession and control. And then I felt something. A strange mixture of anger, relief, and quiet amusement. The chaos had passed. The fire almost gone. But the lesson remained. The neighborhood had witnessed it. The irony had settled. HOA Karen's little world. Exposed. I turned back to the field. Some corn could be saved. Some lost forever. It wasn't just about crops. It was about pride, power, control, and Karen. She had finally understood, painfully, publicly, that chaos, real life, could not be controlled by letters or rules. So I ask you, if someone like HOA Karen destroyed what you worked for, burned your dreams, laughed at your effort, would you step in, confront them, or let them face the consequences, and watch as chaos teaches its own lesson? What would you do if your neighbor broke every rule and thought they were untouchable? Would you act or stay silent? The sun had climbed higher now, but the heat from the fire still lingered. Smoke curled lazily into the sky, twisting, turning, black and gray. The charred cornfield smelled like burned dreams, burnt pride. And Karen, she was still on her porch, trembling, staring at the destruction. Her HOA mask completely gone, replaced by pure raw panic. I walked slowly toward the edge of the field, feeling the crunch of blackened stalks under my boots, the smell of ash in my nose, smoke in my hair, my heart pounding. Neighbors had gathered around, some whispering, some shaking their heads. It was quiet, except for the occasional hiss of water on fire, the crack of burnt corn, and Karen, muttering, pacing, her hands gripping the railing, knuckles white. I could see her mind working, scheming, panicking, trying to figure out what to do next. Every HOA rule, every fine, every petty note, meaningless now. The chaos had stripped her of control, exposed her, humbled her. And I watched, curious, almost afraid, of what she might do next. Suddenly, she stepped down from her porch, wobbling slightly. Neighbors gasped, stepping back, unsure. Her eyes darted around, searching, pleading. Panicked, she muttered something, too low to hear, but I could see it in her expression. She was trying to save herself, to fix the unfixable, to control the uncontrollable. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Part of me wanted to yell, scream at her, demand answers. But another part, the quiet, dark part, wanted to watch, to see how the queen of HOA rules, the ruler of tiny fines and letters, would handle real chaos. She approached the edge of my field, careful, hesitant. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the fear, the embarrassment. Neighbors whispered, some pointing, some shaking their heads. It was like watching a drama unfold in slow motion. The quiet street, now alive with tension. The HOA lawyer followed her, clipboard raised, notes scribbled furiously. I could see Karen flinch at every word, every motion. She tried to speak, to explain, to apologize, but her voice shook, stuttered, and broke under the weight of what she had done. I stepped closer, but kept my distance. The blackened stalks snapped under my boots, smoke curling around my legs. I could feel my anger, my frustration, my disbelief, months of work, my corn, my pride, destroyed, all because of Karen's obsession with control, and yet there was something satisfying in seeing her tremble, her reign, her little kingdom of letters and fines, undone, powerless, exposed, human, finally human. I could see the irony written across her face. She thought she ruled the street, but real life, real chaos, had ruled her. I glanced around, neighbors whispering, some smirking quietly, the quiet ones, the ones who never spoke, watching silently. They had seen it all, every ounce of her obsession, every petty little victory, meaningless now, and I felt a strange sense of calm, a quiet victory. The chaos had done what no one else could. Karen had learned a lesson, painfully, publicly, undeniably. She finally looked at me, eyes wide, pleading, desperate. I can fix this. I'll make it right. Her voice shook, small, weak, almost childlike. I didn't respond, didn't move, just let her see the weight of her actions. The silence stretched, broken only by the hiss of water, the crack of burnt stalks. I could see the panic rising, faster now, her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to survive the humiliation. But there was no escape, no easy answer, no HOA fine that could reverse this. She had burned my crops, created chaos, and now she had to face it, publicly, fully. I stepped back, letting her process it, letting the lesson sink in. The corn, partially ruined, partially saved. Smoke curling into the blue sky, black and gray, twisting like the chaos she caused, neighbors murmuring, some smiling quietly, shaking heads, and Karen, trembling. Finally facing reality, I realized then, this wasn't just fire. It wasn't just crops. This was karma, suburban justice, ironic and precise. The person who ruled with letters and rules had been undone by real-life consequences, and the neighborhood we were all wit. Nessa's all participants changed forever. Karen moved again, hands shaking, muttering, pacing. She looked at the HOA lawyer, pleading, trying to regain control. But it was gone. Her reign over small rules, her petty power. Meaningless now. She had finally learned what real chaos feels like, what real fear feels like, what real loss feels like. I took a step closer, careful, letting her see the weight of my presence. Her eyes darted, pleading, terrified. And I realized, this moment, this chaos, this fire, had changed everything. For her, for me, for the street, for the quiet neighbors who had finally seen the truth. The smell of burnt corn filled the air, smoke curling, blackened stalks snapping, neighbors still whispering, phones recording, eyes wide, watching silently, Karen, trembling, powerless, finally understanding the consequences of obsession, control, and pettiness. And I felt not triumph, not revenge, but a quiet satisfaction. Ironic suburban justice. So I ask you, if someone like HOA Karen destroyed your work, ruined your effort, and thought rules were power, would you confront them, or let them face the consequences, and watch as life teaches its lesson? What would you do if your neighbor broke every line and acted untouchable? Would you act, or wait, and watch? The smoke had mostly cleared now, but the air still carried the smell of burnt corn, thick, heavy, lingering. I walked slowly through the blackened field, fingers brushing against the charred stalks. Some of my crops had survived, but most were destroyed, blackened, broken, lost. The fire trucks were packing up, hoses coiled, water dripping. Firefighters tired but efficient, and Karen, she stood on her porch, trembling, frozen, watching, unsure, defeated. I could see every line of panic on her face, the shame, the fear, the humiliation. Her HOA mask, gone, shattered, replaced by pure raw terror. She had ruled the street with letter, fines, whispers, fear. But now, she had no control, none at all. Exposed, human, small. The HOA lawyer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Speaking quietly, I could hear him mention fines, claims, insurance, consequences. Karen flinched at every word, muttering under her breath, trying to defend herself. But I could see it. Deep down, she knew it was too late, too public, too real. Neighbors had gathered, whispering, pointing, some shaking their heads, some smirking quietly. Even the quiet ones, the ones who never spoke, were watching, eyes wide, observing. I realized. The entire street had seen the collapse, the reckoning, the fall of HOA Karen, her reign, her petty victories, her little world of control, all gone, burned, destroyed. I walked closer to the edge of the field, boots crunching on blackened stalks. The heat still lingered, smoke curling around my legs, making my eyes water. I could feel my own pulse. Adrenaline still racing, heart pounding. This wasn't just a fire. This wasn't just ruined corn. This was justice. Quiet, ironic, suburban justice. And I had witnessed it all. Karen finally moved. Steps slow, hesitant, hands shaking, lips trembling. I can fix this, I'll make it right, she stammered, voice weak, small. I could see the desperation, the panic, the shame. No words could undo what she had done. No apology could bring back the crops, the time, the pride. She had acted recklessly, burned my work, created chaos. And now she had to face it. I stepped back, letting her feel the weight of the moment, letting the lesson sink in, the corn, partially destroyed, partially saved, the smoke curling into the sky, twisting black and gray, neighbors murmuring, whispers spreading, phones recording, witnesses silent but present, Karen, trembling, powerless, finally facing the consequences of obsession and control. I looked around, my neighbors, their aches reflecting disbelief, relief, quiet satisfaction, the quiet street, once so orderly, so predictable, now changed forever, and Karen, trembling, muttering, realizing that chaos, real life, real consequences, could not be controlled by letters or petty fines. She finally sank into her chair, defeated, humiliated, broken, her HOA kingdom, rules, letters, control, gone, meaningless. And I realized it wasn't just about the fire, the corn, or even her panic. It was about power, pride, obsession, and what happens when they collide with real life. I bent down, touching the scorched earth, blackened stalks snapping beneath my fingers, the smell of smoke filling my lungs, making me cough. But I didn't care. I could feel the quiet satisfaction of seeing justice done. Ironic, small, suburban justice. Karen had crossed the line, and she had finally paid. Publicly, painfully, undeniably, the neighbors whispered again, some laughing quietly, some shaking heads. Even the ones who never spoke nodded, acknowledging the truth. The power dynamics had shifted. The queen of the HOA, powerless, human, fallible. And I felt, not triumph, not revenge, but a strange calm, a sense of balance restored. The chaos had done what no letters, fines, or petty rules ever could. Karen looked at me, eyes wide, pleading silently, desperate, terrified. I didn't speak, didn't move, just let her feel the weight of what she had done. The silence stretched, broken only by the crack of burnt stalks, the drip of water, the distant sirens. And I knew, this moment, this fire, this chaos, had changed everything. She tried to speak again. I didn't mean. Her voice broke, trembled, faded. And I realized it didn't matter. The lesson had already been learned. Chaos, fire, consequence had taught her what no HOA rule ever could. I took a slow step back, letting her absorb the moment, the public exposure, the irony, neighbors still whispering, phones recording, eyes wide, silent witnesses. The sun glinted off the hoses, the blackened stalks, the burnt ground, everything sharp, everything alive, everything changed. Karen finally sank fully into her chair, defeated, exhausted, powerless. I could see her small, fragile, human, her obsession with control, her petty victories, her HOA kingdom, all gone. And I felt not joy, not hate, but a quiet satisfaction, the quiet suburban justice, ironic, precise, undeniable. I looked at my ruined, partially saved corn, the scorched earth. The chaos had passed, but the lesson remained. Neighbors whispering, witnessing, reflecting, changed. And Karen, trembling, powerless, finally understanding the consequences of obsession and control. So I ask you, if someone like HOA Karen ruined your work, destroyed your pride, acted untouchable, would you confront them directly, or let life and chaos teach them the lesson they desperately needed? What would you do if your neighbor thought they were above consequences? Would you act, or watch silently?